So, the reason why you're watching this video is because you didn't follow the best practice of running your balanced liability report before you changed your rates and executed your accruals. Let's say it's March or it's April, and now you want to get a balanced liability for July. The task gets a little more complicated, but can be accomplished in somewhat similar fashion. So, again, from our new UI, we're going to open up our navigation panel, and in the search box, we're going to type accruals, and we're going to look for the hyperlink that says history. So this is going to bring us to the accruals history report. When the report opens up, the first thing we need to do is change the dates that are associated with the report. So there's a blue bubble right above the column headers that says date added, and clicking on that will open up the filter pop-up box. We're going to want to change the date added type from calendar range to date range. We're going to add the dates that we executed the accrual policy. So we'll pick a range, not knowing exactly, and we'll say that this was executed somewhere from December 31st of 12/31/2018 to January 6th of 2019. Now the range that we're going to cover is simply the range right around the new year when that carryover would have occurred. So in the range covered, again, we're going to change the type to date range, and then we're going to backspace out the date and type in 12/31/2018 in this case. If you're doing this for next year, you would be 12/31/19, etc. And we're going to choose backspacing out January 2nd of 2019 and click apply. That will then get the correct dates into the system. Now we're going to want to configure the columns in the report the same way that we did the year-end balance liability. We'll start by clicking on the ellipsis. We'll click add and remove columns. We'll select the current columns and remove, and then we'll begin the process of looking at the reference document and adding the appropriate columns in the correct order. So again, using the search box and the add feature until we get all of them in, and then we'll click apply. Once we've added our columns to the report, we'll again have to filter so that we have the data that we're looking for. We'll start with the employee status column, use the equal operator, and type the word active into the filter so that we're only looking at active employees, and click apply. Next, we'll move to the transaction type column, click on the drop down, choose the like operator this time, and type the first few letters of a field name in there. So we want the previous year's carryover, so we're going to type in PREV, so like PREV in this field, and click apply. That's going to only give us the carryover rule from the previous year that was removed. Next, we're going to move to the time off column and use the in operator, and then type the name separated by a comma exactly as it is in the system of the time offs that we want. So in this case, we just want to look at sick and vacation. So sick, comma, vacation, and then we click apply. Once we do that, we want to save this report. So we're going to click on here. We're going to click Save View As. We're going to type Balance Liability, and then we're going to click Save and Run. Now here's where the fun begins. We're going to click on the ellipsis, click the Export button, select Excel, display the header, and export to download the file. Once we now have the information that we've exported out, and we need to create our balance liability. So the first thing we're going to do is give a column header, column J, and call it balance liability. To get the correct amount, we need to multiply the hours authorized by the hourly pay by -1, because this is the amount of time that was removed or was remaining in the prior year. So that looks like this. We're going to do equal this cell. We're going to hit the star, which is a shift above the 8, or if you have a number pad, the star key. This column, the star again, and -1. And that'll give us our balance liability as a positive number. I could highlight the column, turn it into currency, and then if I click on the bottom of the cell, the bottom corner of the cell, the plus will appear. If I just double click that, it will copy all the way to the bottom of my list that formula. So each cell now has the formula pertinent to each line. Now, the other issue we're going to have is that the hourly pay, if it exported out of the system, is the hourly pay for 2020 that was changed from 2019. Or possibly we had no hourly rate in this field because the system is not syncing rates to the time system. So if that's the case, in order to get our balance liability, we need to get the historical pay rates from the payroll software. So if we jump back over to Business Access again, contact your service team to have the salary rate change query added to your system if it's not already available. Once it's available, click on the Reporting tab, and in the search box, start to type salary until you see the salary rate change query. When you click Run Report, it's going to ask you for the period of time that you're looking for the rate change. So in this case, I'm looking for the rate changes that occurred sometime between December 31st and, for argument's sake, January 6th. And then if I click Run Report, if there were any rate changes that occurred during that period of time, they would be listed here, and I could then click Copy to Clipboard to export that information out, which would be the employee's ID number, first name, last name, and unit rate. I'm going to then want to copy that information by highlighting the section, right-click, and copy, and going to my balance liability report that's exported, and give myself a couple columns, maybe move over to column O, and paste that information into the same spreadsheet. Now, in order for us to find the rate from this table that we want to put here, we need a common field. So the field that's common between these two reports are employee ID, first name, and last name. Now, because there could be differences in first name or last name, spelling, or people, the better operator would be your employee ID number. However, and this is critical for this function to work, the employee ID numbers have to match exactly. So if I look at my employee ID numbers in my balance liability report, they are all 4-digit numbers. If I look over here, I notice that Lisa Broomall is a 2-digit number. So it's not atypical for the payroll system to have up to maybe a 6-digit number. And so if I was 228 in the payroll software, over here my ID might say 000228. So in order to add the leading zeros here, we have to use an Excel operator called the text operator. What that looks like is this. We're going to say equal text, open parentheses, and then we're going to click on the cell that contains the ID number, a comma, an open quotation, and now the number of zeros that we want the field to be, in this case 4. So 0, 0, 0, 0, close quote, close parentheses, and enter. And now you'll see that 228 has become 0228. If I wanted this to be a 6-digit number, and I added 6 zeros, it would change that to 000228. But in our case, we want it to be 4, so we're just going to have the 4 zeros and have it 0228. So again, using our little trick from before, double-clicking on the lower corner will now copy that all the way down the list to the bottom, so any 3-digit number would be converted to a 4-digit number. And then I want to replace this information into this field. So if I hit copy and then click in the first cell, I could right-click and choose paste special and values. What that's going to do is put the information in here and not the formula. So in this cell, it actually says text 02 and the quotes. This cell now just says the number 0228. And now I can highlight and press the delete button for column N, and now I have my list of numbers. In order to get the hourly pay field now, we need to use another Excel function called a VLOOKUP. The way that that works is by clicking in the cell, typing equal V lookup, and an open parentheses. We then want to go over into the balance liability report and pick a reference cell. So in this example, we're saying we want to look up this employee ID number, comma, and we want to look it up in the data set that is contained in cells O, P, Q, and R. So I clicked on O and dragged across to R, and then I'm going to press the F4 key, which is going to put strings in here, which means to look up every single possibility across all these columns. I'm going to then hit another comma, and now the next thing that it's asking you for is, okay, you want to look up this number from this set, but what are you trying to return? What are you looking for in here? What we're looking for is the unit rate. So in this case, it is the 4th column. O is 1, P is 2, Q is 3, R is 4. So we want the 4th column, comma, or else we want it to produce a 0. And then we're going to close our parentheses and hit enter. So now it's found that the rate for this employee is $16.50. What we then do is we have that rate go all the way down the list. And then we highlight and copy our rates and come to the hourly pay, right-click, paste special, values, and OK. That now puts our hourly pay from this column into here, and we now have our balanced liability. Finally, there may be one other additional field in Excel you may want to add depending upon how you're looking at your balanced liability report. So this is my total balanced liability, but there is also a balanced liability that we would have at retirement. So in many cases, there is a cap to the amount of money that a municipality would pay out. So if I add another column and say balanced liability at retirement, we can use another function in Excel called an if-then statement. That would look like this: equal if, open parentheses, if this value is less than the maximum value we could pay out, so let's say it's a $15,000 cap, we want to use this value by clicking in the cell, comma, otherwise we want it to be 15,000, close parentheses. So now, if I highlight this for currency, I can use our little trick. Now what this is telling me is that this person's current liability is $15,939, but at retirement we would cap that at $15,000. These people are below $15,000, so if they retired, they would get the full value. Here's somebody that has a value of $17,000, they would only get $15,000, and etc. And then finally, I could click at the bottom cell and choose the function or the auto sum, the sigma, and I can get a total balance liability in that particular column. And I would see the difference between the current balance liability and the balance liability at retirement. Once I'm done, I could turn around and remove these, and I now have my balance liability report, which I could use Excel functions to group and sort and filter however I need to for my reporting purposes. So I would want to save a copy of that balance liability. Have fun.